Welcome back for another episode of the Office Hours podcast with Professor Brad Perkins. Today in studio, I have again, right? Baker Group just can't get enough of coming on this particular podcast, I guess. So, and they do hire a whole bunch of our students and interns. So I'm more than happy to have two former students of mine and alumni joining us today. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about complicated projects, medical facilities, catch up on what they're doing in the real world now that they've left Iowa State. We might even talk about convention for just a second, since Daniel and I just got back from convention, and Riley's a veteran of the MCAA Convention.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we might talk about that for just a second. But anyway, here, I'll tell you what, we'll go around this way. Shelby, if you want to introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, so I'm Shelby Stecklein with Baker Group in our sheet metal department. Been with Baker Group now full-time for 7 years. And I was...
7 years? Has it been? It's been 7 years already?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, time flies.
It does. I'll be honest, I was thinking just before COVID.
Yeah, no, it's... I was at Baker Group for a couple of years before
Yeah,
COVID.
before COVID hit.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. Okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That's
Keep
okay.
going.
Yeah, but I did an internship with them back in 2017 as well, before graduating. And I was construction engineering, mechanical emphasis.
Mechanical emphasis, all right.
And that's all thanks to Brad.
Ah, yes, another one I can take credit for. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get back to how you got there, other than just saying, yeah, Brad did it. All right, here.
Yep. So Riley McLaren, also former Iowa State Connie mechanical emphasis. So I've been with Baker Group 6 years full time, mechanical project manager. Prior to coming full time, I did a co-op, and then I also did an internship with Baker Group.
All right, awesome. All right. Oh, and here, a little bit of a fun fact here. If you guys want to look at the screen. There's a picture of Riley from the 2018 MCAA Convention when we got the award for the Chapter of the Year, Daniel. Right, this is it, and you'll notice I'm not there.
I was hoping that would come up.
Yeah, were you?
That was one of the best trips of my life.
That was a great trip, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't know because I wasn't there.
We met celebrities.
You met celebrities.
I wondered if you did.
Yeah, you bet. Hey, okay, so for the camera, MCAA Great Future Student Chapter of the Year Award. And I have a little sticky note on it that says, Riley broke this.
See, when you hold it the other way,
right
you can't
there.
tell.
Oh, yeah? Right there. I don't know if everybody, there we go. Right? Riley dropped our award.
Just a little blemish.
Just a little blemish. You can't tell, but this thing weighs like 10 pounds.
I was younger back then.
He was younger back then. He was like throwing it up in the air or something, drops it, breaks it, just kicks it around. Okay, and that's so there. Riley was on that particular crew of
Chapter of the Year.
Chapter of the Year. Now, funny part about that. So they got Chapter of the Year that year, and I got Educator of the Year, but I wasn't there. I was here in Iowa, waiting for a hospital appointment. It's like one of my kids was like, we were trying to get into some appointment, and I did want my wife to do that alone, and we were on standby to get an appointment with a specialist. And it's one of those deals where if they call you, you got to go in like 24 hours or something, and I just couldn't make it for whatever reason. So they get Chapter of the Year that year. And then apparently I got Educator of the Year. I have the award. It's back in my office. But the funny part was I'm sitting in my office that Wednesday morning, and I'm getting these text messages, and here, let me go back to this picture again. Okay, so I still keep in touch with everybody there. There's Riley. Stephanie Shaw is coming, and she's going to do a podcast episode here before the end of the semester. Brittany's over there at Waldinger, and so I haven't. Oh gosh, hold on a second. Your fourth member there.
Uh-oh.
Oh God, I'm embarrassed as hell. I just had her name, Paige.
Yeah.
Paige. She was. Everybody was texting me. These four guys are texting me while this is going on, and I'm like, hey, we got Chapter of the Year. I'm like, oh, that's awesome, and then then they say, and you got Educator of the Year. And I'm like, they're lying to me now. They're just teasing me. And I was like, yeah, right, whatever. And I send that back. And then they send me a picture of my award with David Robinson holding it, who happens to be one of my all-time favorite NBA players of all time.
Great guy.
That I could have met.
Oh.
That I could have met, and he would have, so he's taken a picture with my award. And I'm like, I may have yelled a few expletives. So back then, Larry Cormichael was sitting in the office next to me. And I'm like, I'm just like yelling. And he comes over, knocks on the door, and he's like, Brad, is everything okay in there? Are you all right? I don't know if he thought I was having a heart attack or what, but he's like, I hear a lot of F-bombs coming from your office. And I'm like, nothing. Leave me alone,
David Robinson, great guy.
Yeah.
We hung out with him for hours.
Shut up. Shut up.
He bought all our drinks.
He bought all your drinks. Yeah. No, that was like the best trip I was not on.
Well, another fun fact, I might have dropped both awards, but
You dropped my award too.
may or may not have.
May or may not have. Yeah, I should check. So I see, is there a big divot in it? I'll go look.
Not in that same spot.
Not in the same spot, right? Maybe that's why it's broke. You like hit them together, Oh, but yeah, that was so bummed out. I missed that. But anyway, that was the deal on Riley's trip that I didn't even get to go to.
I wondered if you'd have that.
You wondered if I'd pull it out and remind you.
So where's that sit now?
On the top of my file cabinet in my office.
Does it?
Yeah. Because it was out on the trophy cases, there on the 4th floor, and then I can't remember what it was. I think Larry was purging a bunch of old awards. He was going to throw them out. I was like, no, here, those are mine.
Yeah.
I'm just taking them to my office and not letting them in the trophy case. I mean,
Does that note live on it in your office?
Yes, the note does. See, that's it. That note was on there when you brought it back. Okay, see the little sticky note that says Riley dropped this. So this note is now 7 years old.
I can sign that.
Would you please?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have you sign that before. But that was a good trip. Daniel and I just got back here a couple weeks ago from MCAA Convention in Austin. That was a blast. We need to do one of these on the trip itself. It was a really, really good time. They had a great convention. Convention is way bigger.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it's just gotten bigger and bigger. That's a fact. They hand out a lot more scholarships now. Daniel, Olivia, and Jaden all got national scholarships.
I saw that.
They have MCAA of America now has, it's right about $100,000 in scholarships that they hand out to the students. So it's
Amazing.
It's a great deal for the students. It's a way for the ones that are really active, and the ones that are getting internships with mechanical contractors. It's a way to encourage and recognize and kind of help them out with the process, because college has not gotten cheaper. In the years since you two graduated, it's not gone down any. So with that in mind, it's been great to be involved with the association. I know Baker Group does a whole lot of stuff with it. So, all right, Daniel, here, quick, you need to introduce yourself.
I'm Daniel Kellen, current Connie student and former intern at Baker Group. So,
all right, and senior who is going to be doing his design review with me soon.
That's
So,
exciting.
yeah, so it'll either he's graduating this semester or next. It depends on how this goes.
Yeah.
Is all that power in your hands?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. I can definitely, you do have to get through the design notebook review. That is a fact.
It can be ruthless.
don't worry, I've been told.
Here, you got to speak into the mic.
They don't need to hear that.
Oh, they don't need to hear that? All right. He says he's heard. He doesn't understand yet. But,
And really quick, can you hear me? Because my headphones shut off. Okay.
oh, it did?
Yeah.
Okay,
but-
nope. I
yeah.
hear you just fine.
Okay.
I hear you just fine. All right. So here, let's start here. Shelby, tell me how you got to construction engineering, how you got to the mechanical emphasis, and then Baker Group specifically, if you want to.
Yeah, sure, I'd love to. So we talked a little bit about this before recording, but I actually, growing up, was interested in architecture. And
Architecture. Oh,
Yes.
Ooh, saved one. Saved another one.
yeah, exactly. I know. Come a long way since then.
Yeah. All right, keep going.
But so then I talked to my parents. They're like, we think you should look at engineering. There's more opportunities.
Oh, they were right. Good
yeah.
thing. Good thing you listened to parents.
Yeah, so then freshman year at Iowa State, I went in undeclared engineering, and Larry Cormichael actually came to talk to some students in, I think it was just Engineering 101.
Yeah, he used to frequently go to the Engineering 101. Jenny Baker does that now,
Oh, nice.
right? She's kind of taken over that since Larry's left. But yeah, okay. So Larry comes and gives you the "Yay,
Yeah,
go Connie" speech that a lot of
Exactly.
alumni have heard.
Yeah, so that just intrigued me on the building side, and so I went in building emphasis.
Okay.
And then I'm trying to remember which course it was, but because my first class with you would have been Connie 241.
241. Yep.
But I believe it was not until 350.
352.
Yep,
Yeah.
352 that I really struck an
I
interest.
think I remember this. I
Yeah.
remember this because we were doing, and alumni will know this, but not every student that might be listening to this has taken 352. So 352 is where you really get into the mechanical. You really dive into the mechanical systems. You do a lot of the calculations that I would do as a professional engineer. We talk about systems, everything from heat pumps to chillers to boilers to plumbing systems and piping systems and on and on. So for some students, that is really, for a lot of students, that's when it really, like, oh yeah, oh okay, I get it. Yeah, this is, a lot more in-depth and complicated than ordering drywall. Not to disparage our drywall ordering, alumni, but it's all in good fun. But anyway, for a lot of students, that's when it starts to, pique some interest.
Yeah, and
Okay.
just the specialty of it, really getting to dive into one thing instead of more generalized.
Instead of generalized.
construction. Yeah.
So how do you think your career, like knowing other people in industry that have went more towards a general contractor, how would you, if you don't mind, how would you contrast yours and maybe the opportunities that you see going forward? Because you're just right now you're like in the, you're just 10 less than 10 years out. Where do you see this going? I guess.
Yeah. So I'm definitely biased being.
Well, of course you
mechanical,
are,
yeah.
and that's okay.
But
We live with our biases
yeah,
here.
I do feel like there's an opportunity to grow and move up more quickly, just because you have a niche. You're learning a lot about a smaller area of
Yeah.
construction instead of, again, having a general knowledge of all aspects of construction. So you get to develop your knowledge more quickly. Experience comes pretty quick. I started off as an assistant project manager at Baker Group, and I want to say I think it was a year and a half into working at Baker Group is when I got promoted to project manager. Whereas in maybe working at a general contractor or just a construction management, that may take a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I do. I think that's probably a fair comparison. I also would say that of companies, I do believe someone watching from the outside, it does to me, and you guys can, all of you have worked for Baker Group, but it does seem like Baker Group might throw you into the deep end faster. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Everybody's like, yes. Okay. All right. I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's probably definitely a facet of the company that you're working for. Is they're like, hey, but I will also say this is that so I started teaching here in 2005, and way back in 2005 at the MCAA conventions, they're all having the same discussion. And that discussion is, oh my God, how do we get more people in our industry? We need everybody from the engineer, estimator, project manager. We also need plumbers and pipe fitters and tinners, and we need the apprentices. They're literally like way back in 2005. We're having these conversations, and I really think MCAA got ahead of this. Say compared to the general contractors of the world. By ahead of it, I mean they're recognizing here's the average age of our workers. Ooh, it's getting really high. And so just look at the next 20 years. How many of the people working today are going to be retired?
Yeah.
And they're literally saying we're looking at the numbers coming in versus the numbers that are leaving, and we have a problem. And if that's the case, what do we do about it? And I want to say what has benefited Daniel and, his peers now, with we've got more chapters, more scholarships, more internship programs, the whole thing. What has benefited them is that over the course of that, there's been a lot more push towards getting younger people involved in our industry. A lot more. I mean, I want to say like in the 2010s, there was a big push, but they're doing even more now, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing because we need talented people in our industry, and I just don't see that changing. Look at the average age of your workers, and it's like, ooh boy, we could use some young people, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right. So keep going. I interrupted you there.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So what do they got you doing now?
I actually do a lot of work with the healthcare, medical facilities, clinics, hospitals.
Okay.
Mostly renovations, remodels, and upgrades.
Yeah, but a big facility like that, you build it and then you start renovating almost immediately,
Yep,
right? I mean, it
exactly.
never really ends.
Yeah, it's never ending. It's a very secure
It's very
area to be
secure.
in
Yeah,
construction.
I would agree definitely. And I wonder if a little bit of that is going through COVID. A lot of people realized, ooh, we're not really prepared to handle that. How do you handle a pandemic? And there's all these. Okay, so personal bias. Okay, I'm just gonna say this is my personal bias. I don't think a stupid piece of cloth over your face stops a virus. But you know what I do think works? Ventilation.
Yeah.
Ventilation, exhaust, and in some cases where necessary, the right filters. And these are all mechanical solutions to that particular problem. And I always, as soon as, if we go back to the pandemic, they're like, oh, wear a mask, it doesn't matter, just a cloth piece of whatever. And I'm like, really? You're telling me this pillowcase someone sewed together that I put over my face is somehow going to stop a virus that goes down to the micron level? I don't think so, but whatever. I'm not a doctor either.
Right. No, but I mean, I agree. COVID was definitely a spike in what was required of us. I mean, that was probably my busiest time.
Yeah.
In the medical world at Baker, since I've been at Baker Group, just because we were working with a lot of facilities and hospitals to retrofit existing patient rooms into
Oh, yeah,
isolation
in
rooms.
isolation rooms.
Yeah.
Sure.
And-
Well, the only way you do that, fans, ductwork,
Yeah.
ventilation.
Yeah, I mean,
The normal the stuff I just said, right?
exactly.
Right. So yeah, because you don't want to. You don't want to have your hospitals become the spreading grounds, but where are people with that virus supposed to go? So yeah, those are all mechanical intensive solutions.
Yeah.
All right, so you've been doing a lot of hospital stuff. Okay, Riley, why don't you tell me what they got you up to other than dropping trophies and meeting stars?
Those were in my past days.
Those are you.
So again, 6 years full time at Baker Group. Probably the first 6 years were really the medical side of things as well. Working in hospitals, working in clinics, and then kind of transitioning out of that a little bit now. But that's really where my last 6 years have been, is mostly medical facilities as well.
All right. Doing the same projects? Are you working for Shelby or?
We often
Yeah.
work together. We've
Yeah.
done a bunch of the same clients, been in a bunch of the same projects together, which has been fun. But yeah, probably COVID was one of the busier times too. And I would add, one of the reasons it was so busy is because people didn't know how to deal with it, right? So we were trying to instruct them about the mechanical, but then you had. And again, not to get the political side, but you had people.
Oh
talking
no!
about
You can throw it. You can throw
Right.
things out. It's a
So-
podcast, right?
So people talking about the mask and the vaccine. Yes, there's something there, I'm sure. But as far as like the mechanical driven stuff, that was hard for people to not necessarily swallow, but understand. Right? Hey, the ventilation things you talked about, the upgrades to mechanical equipment.
Oh, I had this conversation here at work. With my department chair. Literally, when this is going on, he's like, "Hey, Brad, is there anything we can do, to make town engineering better to handle this?" And I'm like what? He goes, "Well, is there like filters or something?" And I'm like, "Okay, hold on. you know, and I'm like, let me explain. Yes, there are filters, hospital grade ones that you can put in an air handler. No, our current air handlers cannot handle it. You know, I'm like, well, because when you throw a HEPA filter into a system not designed for it, now you just pinch down the airflow, and we don't have enough airflow as it is.
Yeah.
You know, I said, you know what we could do is open up the outside air dampers as much as we can. You know, and I kind of walked him through the whole. I don't think any of it was ever done. You know.
Yeah.
You know, but what I said is we should be bringing in outside air as much as we can. But then what I said is, you know, this is all probably for nothing because town engineering is so leaky. We've got all this outside air coming in anyway. You know, I'm like, I don't know if it really matters because town is as leaky as Swiss cheese. Because
You got enough ventilation in there.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we got enough infiltration.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, I literally told him, I'm like, I stand in front of a couple of windows up there. I'm not worried about getting it. You know, I got plenty of fresh air screaming past me. It's just going the wrong direction. But
That was part of the, the fun part back then was, and still to this day is meeting with owners and having those conversations. Now, obviously, money becomes a factor. Not everyone goes for it, but just explaining those or going through what your options were, that was some of the fun part.
yeah, no, I actually Sarah's here at Iowa State had me write a paper on this subject. It's like, what do you do to come back from COVID and stuff? And, you know, and I was like, well, it's not, you know, it's not rocket science. That's in the other building. You know, I'm like, yeah, as much ventilation as your system can handle.
Yeah.
You know, sure, having people separate a little bit. Yes, that, you know, it's all about concentrations. And if you got someone here, you know, let's say Daniel has COVID. Right, he went on spring break and he comes back with some, you know, crazy flu. Right. Well, what do the rest of us get that? Well, it's a question of time and concentration, and you know how much of the germ is he putting out, and how much fresh air is coming into this room, and does the concentration get high enough, and are you close enough, you know, to get it? And it's like, okay, we solve this kind of the way casinos solve the smoking question, right? We'll just ventilate like crazy, and then we got all sorts of fresh air, and cigarette smoke doesn't get all that thick.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the way they handle it, and that's what I'm explaining is that you know, town engineering can't do this because our air handlers are barely holding on by a thread as it is, and we can't just throw, you know. And he's like, well, is there some? Gosh, what was the next question? I've heard ultraviolet lights and, you know, that stuff. I'm like, sure, those are good things. They kill germs.
Yeah.
I said, what I suggest though is maybe put them in the classrooms and not the air handler. That didn't happen either. So, you know, anyway.
Well, and you know, you talked a little bit about kind of our industry and needing people, right? Young people and just people in the industry in general. You talked about 2005 and those conversations still happen. I was telling Shelby the other day, I went to a medical conference specifically, and one thing that we learned there was, and I'll get these numbers a little wrong, but they said 15 years ago, so I think they're looking at this, 15 years ago, they said that there was one nurse for every 4 patients.
Yeah.
And they said now it's about one nurse for every 8 patients.
I tell you, I have my niece is a nurse. She actually works here in Ames, you know, and yeah, there's a crisis in nursing.
They think in 15 years they project one nurse for every 4 patients, and that's part to do with people, age of people, and
wait, okay, so we're at 1 in 8 now. We're going to 1 in 4. Where do we get more nurses, or are people dying?
I might be saying that backwards.
Oh, okay, all right.
I said I'd mess up the numbers. So
Okay.
it used to be 1 in 4, then and they project 1 in
8.
1 in 8 now, then 1 in 15 and 15.
Ooh, yikes!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You think? I mean, I do kind of see that. I mean, listening to her, you know, she's like, yeah, you know how to make a lot of money in nursing is become one of the traveling nurses.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a thing? She's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, traveling nurses, traveling doctors, where they're like, they go and basically they're mercenaries. You know, you go where the hospital pays you the most and you go there for a while and you work as much as you can and then you take some time off and recuperate. And when you can, you sign back up again and somebody will pay you to travel because they can't get enough nurses. Gosh, I think this happened like Oh, what was it? Well, we have 5 kids, so trips to the emergency room are fairly common. And even in like Boone Hospital, right? You talking to someone like either the nurse or the doctor in the emergency room, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm not from around here. I'm from New York." You're like, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, I do the traveling thing." It's like, wow, selling your skills to the highest bidder. It's like being an engineering mercenary. I like it.
And I suppose it's a way for young people to travel.
It
I
is.
mean, that's the
And
incentive.
make a lot.
And make a lot.
Make a lot. So, but that's a statement, I think, and I think this is probably true, is that we're seeing a shift in. Okay, I'm going to generalize for the whole country, right? But we're seeing a shift in that we need more and more people with specialized training, kind of like what you were saying with going mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, wait, I've got more opportunities because I'm more specialized. That doesn't narrow my job opportunities. It actually opens them up. It makes it so that, like, when you're graduating, you're like, you could have gone to work for a design firm, like I did, or you could have went for a general contractor that would love to hire mechanical emphasis people.
Yeah.
Or you could work for the mechanical contractor like you did, and even within then. Think about like Daniel is literally, so we're at MCAA convention and he's like turning people down, and they're like, "So Daniel, I see I saw you get that scholarship. You got figured out what you're going to do after school?" He's like, "Yeah, I just took a job." And they're like, "Really? How set are you in that?" They're trying to what'd you do? Turn down like 3 or 4 job offers?
Yeah.
Wow.
Even after people knew you'd accepted from someone else. I mean, that's
A fellow.
here. You got it. Yeah, here.
After they found out, I went and started working for a fellow MCAA contractor as well.
Yeah. One MCAA contractor trying to, because they're like, "Oh, he does want to go into mechanical. Now I really want to hire him." Isn't that crazy? I mean, no offense, Daniel, right? You're a great young kid, but you haven't no experience. You know what I'm saying is that you've got internships, right? You're just starting a career, and people are like, "Oh man, we need the expertise." And let's be honest. And yes, anyone who knows this knows I'm totally biased towards our profession. But serious question, okay? Shelby, Riley, how long are the two of you unemployed if Baker Group is like, "You know what? We're going to change from mechanical to we're going to make sewing machines." And the two of you are like, "Yeah, I don't want to do that," right? How long are you unemployed, in all seriousness?
As long as it takes me to pull up LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. If you even get to LinkedIn, if somebody heard, let's say somebody heard Baker Group is shutting down, how many phone calls would you be getting?
Yeah. I mean, the opportunities are endless.
The opportunities are absolutely there. And this is what I try to impress upon our students, as you're not just when you graduate, but where do you see yourself 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15? What kind of opportunities do you think that they're going to be? As people my age are, I'm in my 50s. I'll be retirement age soon, which won't matter because I have 5 kids. I'll be working forever. Here I'll probably be teaching when Daniel's kids are going to school here. But anyway, as people my age are aging out, there's a void of people. I'm going to blame a little bit. Okay, so let's wind back the clock. Let's go to that 2005 timeframe. So what happened only 3 or 4 years from then? Well, 2008, 9, and 10, we had the recession and the drawdown, and a lot of people left construction. And a lot of people that would be in construction today, say, okay, so what year did you graduate?
2017.
2017. Okay. So people like 7 years older than you, there should be more of them in our industry, and they're not.
Yeah.
We can see that, and even at Baker Group, you can see that gap where there's opportunities for people, our age, me and Shelby, because there is that weird gap.
There is a weird gap, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's my age, and then there's you.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a, it's not that there's nobody there. It's just that in those years, people that would have went to construction went elsewhere, and they didn't come back. And so what that's meant is as all of us age up, there's this gap between someone in their 50s and someone still in their late 20s or early 30s, and there's like, ooh, there's quite the gap here, and there's not as many people as you would think. And what that's created is it's created great opportunities for the two of you.
Yeah.
It has, and great pressure, I might add, as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason construction, and there's nothing wrong with talking about mental health issues. There's a reason our industry is high pressure. There's a reason our industry has a high incidence of mental health failings and suicide and that type of thing. It is not easy. It's not easy. It doesn't get easier after college. It's so funny. Students seem to think, oh, I'm going to get out of college and all my pressure will go away, right? Here, back me up on the two of you, right? Do you think back to college and think to yourself, gosh, I wish I had that much free time again?
Oh,
No.
What's it?
We were actually talking about that
Oh,
on
yeah?
the way in.
Yeah.
Just seeing students come out of the building.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, that's nice to be done with class, but you're never really done with your day
Yeah.
when you.
less stressful though.
Yeah. Yeah,
the
definitely
stress-
less
yeah.
stressful.
Less stressful.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm just saying, once you graduate,
It'll be
Yeah.
easier to hear.
yeah, okay, all right,
Sorry.
all right. No worries if that's not working. But once you graduate, it's not that the stress goes down, and that's something I think a lot of people maybe aren't prepared for. They're thinking, oh, college is so stressful. This is so stressful. This is so stressful. And I was literally just having this conversation with some students in 241, where I'm like, the beauty of academia is that you get to wipe off your desk at the end of the semester and start over. New groups, new classes, new instructor, whatever mistakes you just made last semester, and maybe last semester is like 4 weeks ago, from fall to spring, doesn't matter. You get a fresh start, and you don't get that in industry, So
I even look at like the field teams. There's just this weird gap still.
yeah, isn't there?
And you mentioned something interesting about the pressure on the even in the field we see that where younger people are becoming field leaders quicker.
Yeah.
And they open up about that pressure and what that stress causes, but that gap just exists across construction. I've noted that before. We've talked about it a little bit within Baker Group's walls, just as it relates to some of the opportunity that comes with that. But
it is a very real thing. I remember thinking here. So Monday I had on a couple ladies that volunteer in our Cultivating Hope Farms charity, and Baker Group donated and installed some mini splits for us, and they were installed. And I remember thinking to myself, the guy that comes out, the tech, Chris, tall dude, although everybody's tall.
Camito?
Tall, young, blonde, I don't know. I'm iffy. He's in the service department, so you guys might not know him.
Oh, I would have thought Chris Camito as well.
yeah.
Oh, is it? All right. Is he tall and young?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I remember just thinking, I'm like, I really wanted to say, dude, where's your supervisor? He's so young looking. I was like, and he's like, yeah, I got a DMAC here a couple of years ago, and I was like, cool. You know what I'm saying is if we would rewind the clock, someone his age would have been working for someone else, not sent out.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, this is a very, 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 very small project, right? We're talking about 2 mini split systems. It's no big deal. But he wouldn't have even been driving the truck 20 years ago. Now he's like, oh, yeah, I can't make it today because we got to go to this, this client's got this, emergency, And I was like, yeah, catch us whenever. We're good. And, because, you remember the ice storm here a little bit ago, the winter storm that came from, I don't know, weirdness.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, yeah, all these things broke and, got to go fix this and this and this. And I'm like, yeah, come and catch us later. And I remember thinking, I'm like, am I getting old or are the responsibilities going to younger and younger people?
Yeah. And it's cool
They have
from
to
the
go to
service side.
someone.
It's cool
Well,
from the service side because service side does do that quicker just because the nature of the amount of, buildings that are out there and the age of buildings, they do need to split people off quicker.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing, the service technician training, and I'm like, there's a couple guys my age, but not many. A lot of younger guys, which is awesome to see. which is awesome to see because they're getting opportunity to move up and learn and stuff so much faster.
Well, and you even need that from like, we talk 5-10 years ahead. We really need that. This is probably an opinion too, but it's a podcast.
Well, sure, it's opinion. Yeah, it's a podcast. So, look, if if you need real engineering advice, please do not consult a podcast. All right, now there, disclaimers all out of the way. There you go. Go ahead.
Even from like a high school level, people they need to promote trades more, and I think that's
They do.
I think
Yes.
that's happening a little bit more, or at least Baker groups can become more involved in it.
Yeah.
But admittingly, that option wasn't well presented to me, 10, 11 years ago when I was.
Oh,
graduating.
no. Oh, no. Even, okay, here. I'm going to really date myself. All right. So here I am leaving high school, 1989. And even then, the mantra was, what college you going to? What college? What college? What college? And it doesn't matter. You just got to go to college. You just got to go. Whatever it takes, take all the financial aid you need, whatever it was. And that's in, $1989. College wasn't as expensive. If we look at general inflation versus the cost of attending a four-year university, I mean, it's worse today than it was back then, and this always cracks me up when I hear people my age and older say things like, well, I worked my way through college. Yeah, you know why? Because you could.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. You could get a minimum wage job full-time in the summer, part-time through the semester, and literally pay your tuition and your living expenses as you went. That was a legit option in the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe even 80s. It'd have been tough. Well, I mean, I did it, but I had a few loans. I had a little bit of GI Bill that helped, so I was able to do it. But Daniel's age, that's not possible. You can't work a minimum wage job and pay for tuition. You just can't. Now, granted, not that many places are paying minimum wage. I mean, but still, the point is still there. It's a lot harder to do.
Rewind back to the nurse thing we talked about in the trades. I think it's getting better as far as coming out of high school, but I think that's also coming a little closer to it now. Just because Baker Group's making some pushes to get in front of people at that age. But yeah, we just named two major industries that are lacking, people on the field or in response. Nurses and construction.
Yeah. And there's no easy answers to these. I mean, there's not. You're right. I hope that people are seeing it's like, wow, there's a lot of opportunities in these, and you can get on your way to a really, really decent paying job. I mean, really well paying job with very, very little input with regards to what you're going to spend for education and training and stuff. And now let me say, completely that Iowa State, relatively speaking to our peer institutions, I want to say Iowa State is still a pretty good value. There's a reason why like a third of our students are from Illinois.
Yeah.
Because they can pay out-of-state tuition here at Iowa State and get an engineering degree cheaper than they can go to in-state at University of Illinois.
Seems to be the same for Minnesota.
It is the same for Minnesota. We have a lot of people from and the reason I know this is now the contractors from Chicago and Minnesota are both hitting me up. They're like, "Hey, we need to recruit. Hey, we're coming to the career fair. Hey, can we go to your look at the industry night that we just had?" I want to say half those contractors were from Illinois or Minnesota. And don't get me wrong, that's a good thing. I mean, I want them there because they're looking for students from their state. Probably, a lot of them will want to move back if there's opportunities. Although a lot of them from Illinois say, no, I don't want to move back. I want to keep on going. But, I don't blame them at all. But, I mean, my point is that Iowa State is still a decent value compared to peer institutions. And yet I'm still saying working your way through school is not really possible without taking on a significant amount of debt.
Yeah, I mean, that was my exact experience. I did internships every summer full-time and then worked part-time but minimum wage throughout each semester. And it barely got me enough to pay for, I'd say, the first couple months of just room and board alone.
It always seemed to catch up. It always seemed to catch up.
Yeah.
No, it does. It does. And that's why, I tell you what, that's why I'm so grateful for these scholarships. Like, okay, I'm going to take the ones that Daniel and his peers just got, And don't think I'm not going to use the hell out of that when I'm talking in 241. It's like, oh, hey, check this out. Right? Oh yeah, our officers, 3 of our officers just got pretty sizable checks from MCA. You could do that too if you were involved.
Well, remember, when I was going through, same for you, Shelby. There was more scholarships than people were going for a couple of those. The ones that were available, you almost had to go, and you had a pretty good shot.
Oh, that is still true. I want to say is that we don't have enough students applying for like let's just use MCA of Iowa scholarship. They've got this list, and they're like, hey, do you know everyone on here? And I'm like, no, I don't. They're like, they're wanting to give it to the kids that are active. And we don't have enough. We have more scholarships. I mean, they're going to give it to the ones that maybe aren't involved with MCA if there's still money left, and there probably will be. It's like, dang, if you're involved, you should be going for the money, and I really appreciate it. SHMACNA gives some scholarships. MCA of Iowa does. These are all great things for getting the attention of the students in our industry. So, are you guys involved with either one of those? Don't you sit on one of the scholarship boards?
No,
you don't.
No, I've been involved, but no.
Okay. I thought, all right, who was? Maybe it was Russ.
Yeah, he sits on the SmackDown one.
Right, that's the one. Yeah, they had their scholarship interviews while we were at Austin.
Oh wow.
It's like terrible timing. Not so great timing. All right. Well, let's talk about your hospital projects. I mean, this is why I want to hear is like how mechanical focused are they getting? Like total project cost. I mean, what does it take to build a hospital for someone just listening to this? How would you walk them through? Like, what's the percentage of contracts like on a new hospital that's being spent on mechanical? Do you have any idea? Any guesses?
The one that we talked about that we just completed.
Here, I got that here. All right, and we are looking at the Iowa Clinic.
Yep.
Okay. All right, here, hold on a second. There we go. Okay, so
beautiful.
All right, so we got urgent care, South Waukee, Iowa Clinic. What is being built here? What's in this building?
So on the right side there, they added 4 ORs. So Iowa Clinic, they're growing rapidly for every reason we talked about.
Yeah.
They hadn't had operating rooms before, so that side of that building, Daniel worked a bunch on this.
Oh, Daniel! All right. So what's going on? Okay, so we got 4 different operating suites.
Correct. Yep.
All right.
And so that'd be on the right side of that picture, or my right.
Do you know do they have a specialty, or is it just all things, or is it this is like heart surgery or something?
No,
like
I don't think they're doing any heart surgery. Just all things, I would say.
All right, I don't have a lot of healthcare design experience, but what little I have always told me it was the heart surgeons that determine the operating rooms.
Yeah, it would be, I would think.
Right, just because they're the highest paid and they get the most input.
They definitely had a lot of input, or someone at that level had a lot of input.
Okay, all right. So they're building. So in the picture we're looking at on the right there, we got 4 different operating rooms. Oh, so here, tell me about here. I'm going to pull this back to us. So tell me about. So you're building an operating room that has got to be pretty intense mechanical wise, right?
Yes. So and that's what I kind of learned through this process. I had done some operating room stuff before that, but brand new. You talk about pressure relationships between the room itself and the hallway. When we talk about the germs or what they're doing in there, you don't want that. You want that just to be, you maintain a pressure relationship so you know exactly where those germs and that air is going.
Okay.
So one room will be positive pressure versus the other room negative pressure. There was a lot of those relationships that we had to figure out through airflow.
Okay.
And then when you talk about
air handlers themselves, are they 100% outside air, or do you HEPA filter it? What do you do here?
I wouldn't. I don't know if I know exactly, but I think you have the ability to do 100% outdoor air.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then within that, right, what you care about in the OR is it has to be a very specific temperature and a very specific humidity. There's these guidelines that drive that. So from a humidity and temperature standpoint, that just had to be so dialed in.
Like how dialed in? Are we looking at like plus or minus 1 or 2 degrees, or plus or minus a few relative humidity percentage, or what are we looking at?
You had a wider humidity range, but then when the doctors come in, like you said, they have a very specific ask, is what we learned.
Yeah.
From a temperature standpoint, I would say plus or minus a few degrees.
Yeah.
But as you know, the humidity just drives so much of that. So that's what we had to spend a lot of time, just assisting and designing around was how the humidity, when they want something different, how that affects the other. So there's a lot of conversation.
That would be
there.
tough. That would be tough. And year round, I would assume, right? So you
Yeah.
got to have humidification,
Yep.
right? And that is something that like man, this subject just came up today in class. They're like, why do we have to do a psych chart for cooling but not for heating? And I'm like, well, in my class, we do not add humidity to a building. But then what I tell them is, now that's not always true, and when you do, you have to do it with caution. But there are specific reasons why you would have to add humidity, and it's challenging,
Yeah.
right? So you've got air handlers that can do all of that: dehumidify, humidify, heat, cool, whatever it is. They're dialing it into this narrow range of temperature and humidity.
Yeah. And then the other thing so within that, you have supplied ductwork, then you also have the return ductwork.
Mhm.
Rather than using an open air plenum to utilize as return air or space path. So within that, what we kind of learned too was like the ceiling space,
Mhm.
how crucial the ceiling space is and coordinate all that ahead of time.
Okay.
With the amount of just large ductwork and med gas running through there, plumbing, all the other things.
So do you see people using that silver coated ductwork for surgeries?
The silver coated ductwork.
Yeah, ag ion stuff, the blue stuff.
Oh, I mean, we typically, I'll say for the most part, are using the standard galvanized above ceiling, and then 2 HEPA diffusers or HEPA
Okay.
filter diffusers.
HEPA filtered diffusers, sure.
But one thing that you have to make sure of in a space like an OR is the insulation for the ductwork definitely cannot have liner. Has to be wrapped external to the ductwork.
Absolutely. Here, hold on a second. This is the stuff that I was talking about. See the silver coated antimicrobial duct coatings? All right. One of my students was on a hospital and saw this and asked me about it. This is just a couple micron thick level of silver on ductwork. The reason being is that silver is a natural antimicrobial. Germs cannot grow on it. It'll kill them. And so she was like, what's this for? And I was like, well, silver-coated ductwork kills germs. You can't grow on silver. And they're like, and the students were asking, they're like, oh my God, coating ductwork is silver. Isn't that expensive? And I'm like, well, how expensive is a lawsuit over a post-operative infection that kills somebody?
Right. I haven't actually used that type of ductwork. That would be fantastic for an operating room, but I'm guessing it probably does come down to cost.
Well, I'm sure it does. Well, I think what you're doing though is you're just swapping first cost for maintenance.
Yeah.
If you've got diffusers that have their own HEPA filters in it, right before that air is delivered, it's like, okay, this is where this is how we're preventing microbials and dust and whatever from getting to the patient. We're going to filter it right before it goes in.
Yeah.
But now said diffusers all need quite a bit of maintenance. How long does it take before I would not have any guess as to how long a HEPA filter would last in that situation?
HEPA filters tend to last at least 2 to 5 years, actually.
Do they really? Okay, yeah, but you're already probably got a really good filter back at the air handler.
Yes.
Yeah.
It all depends on, exactly, the maintenance of the filters upstream.
Well,
and the air
upstream.
handling unit.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, there's another topic we just talked about in 352, the neglected air handling filter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maintenance is very important for especially, in all buildings, but
In all buildings, for sure.
especially medical facilities.
Especially medical facilities, because usually we don't normally think of HVAC systems as like life and death type of stuff. Let's be honest. It's not normally life and death. It's like, hey, my cooling's out. Okay, you're going to sweat. All right.
Well,
but
maybe in Arizona it's life and death.
well, okay. All right. I said normally, normally,
No.
but in a medical facility, lack of maintenance or problems, that could easily be life and death.
Well, like a lot of those medical equipment, whether it's an OR or like a CT scan or MRI, when that delivers, it usually says must be operated between this temperature and this temperature,
Oh,
this
yeah.
humidity and this humidity.
Yeah. Actually, so the capstone students, so Daniel's capstone project, he is about to get grilled on humidity like you don't understand. I am going to just,
Told you it's ruthless.
dude, it's going to be ruthless going over because they're doing an athletic facility and they have maple hardwood floors.
Mm.
And those have a very, very, very narrow range of humidity year round before it violates their warranty. So, let's, in this case, it's some new athletic facility in Ankeny, and they've got a bunch of, basketball courts, and, they're going to do everything from clinics to tournaments to on and on and on. And so they've got a bunch of hardwood courts. All of those, what are you, I don't remember what one of these courts costs, but a collegiate-sized basketball court, hardwood court, is $100,000, let's just say, and they've got multiples of them. So, part of the capstone assignment is, all right, you've got to be able to humidify, dehumidify, and keep. How do you keep this year-round within this narrow band? And because it's an athletic facility with a bunch of people watching, parents and spectators, you've got a bunch of outside air that's got to come into here. So how are you doing this? I can't wait to hear his explanation. Daniel's like, yeah, I can't either.
He'll give it to us right now.
Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, maybe
Daniel.
we should do his
Hey,
capstone review
oh
on the
man, let's do a
podcast.
capstone review live. You
I was
got your
talking
notebook?
about this with some friends yesterday. I was going to
Yeah.
get called onto this podcast to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
my capstone project. so-
Yes. Oh, we should have. You know what? How much time we got? Can I get back over there and get your? That would be entertaining, right? But you know what? We should probably skip that because I'll be honest. Let's see here. Was I doing capstone reviews with the two of you?
Not mine.
Uh,
Not yours.
Yes,
Yes.
to me. Yeah.
Yes to you. Okay. Because I haven't. Because we've had different faculty assignments in different years, so I haven't always been the technical advisor. Did your review?
Yes.
Right. All right. Any tips for Daniel here?
I keep saying he's ruthless. And then,
He's ruthless.
just have that binder be big.
Yeah,
It's definitely big.
Yeah.
It is. It is definitely big. Yeah. Well, okay. What he's not saying is know where your stuff is in it.
Yeah, true.
Okay. Know where your
I
stuff is.
spent a solid day going over formatting, making sure I could find everything, and yeah.
Oh, that's
I-
good.
That was like one of the things I was most worried about. If Brad asks a question, I don't want to be flipping through my notebook for 15 minutes trying to find something.
That's not a good thing.
Yeah, I did forget that was the big thing.
That was the big thing. No, these reviews. Here's the secret, and the seniors have all submitted it, and and who knows, maybe somebody will watch this that does this review in years to come. But the reason I have them do live reviews is within 15 minutes I know the grade.
I would have said quicker than that.
Actually, it's probably
Yeah.
quicker than that.
I think, yeah,
right?
you said quicker than that when even 7 years ago or 6 years ago
Yeah.
when I did it.
Yeah, it usually is. Here, an in-person review reveals everything. It does. It reveals everything within the first few minutes, and you're like, all right, I'll be like, okay, Daniel, so why don't you show me a zone map and your wall sections and just walk me through what codes you used for this, and if at that point someone's like, oh, codes, I just used what they said in capstone. It's like, ooh, that's not good. That's not a good way to start.
So have they already turned it in?
Yes, they've already
Okay,
turned
so,
it in.
So
Yeah.
I'll say this too. He used to say if they came with asked questions or not during the process or before.
You usually know even
Yeah,
before they get
if they
there.
came and asked questions.
If they came and asked questions and what those questions were and, that type of thing.
Yeah.
You have a pretty good idea. Like if you turn this in and you come to my office to review and I haven't seen you with questions,
Yeah.
it's not all that great. Not all that great. It'll go kind of rough. Okay, I'll tell both of you this since and Daniel hasn't gone through it yet, but it's fascinating to me how many seniors get to that point. I start asking them questions and they realize they are in deep trouble. And and then like realize they really didn't work that hard. And no matter what I say ahead of time, they're not prepared.
Yeah.
And then they realize they could fail. Right? Okay, so you would be shocked at how many seniors cry in my office. That is a real thing. That Riley's. No, it's a real thing where they're like when it hits them, it's like, oh my God, I could fail this, right? So that's if we get to the end of my review and I'm asking you questions like, please explain to me why I should pass you on this, that is not a great place to be.
Yeah, that's the question you don't want.
That is not the question you want to hear at the end of this, because it's a goal of mine in teaching is to be fair. One of my goals is not to be easy. And both of you know this, and all three of you know this by this point.
Well, yeah, you're preparing them for their next step after they're a
Right.
senior. They're going out to the real world where there's real consequences.
There are real consequences, and no matter how hard I ask a question, it's not like millions of dollars are at stake or company's reputation is on the line or those types of things. Do you?
Yeah, I was gonna say that was kind of what I kept in the back of my mind throughout this whole process of doing this project is you're asking us questions as if, it were real life. Like we were engineers out in the field having to defend our design, and you want us to be able to defend it honestly and be able to point out where
explain
we found
it.
things.
Yeah. How'd you get there? So you know what's funny? What's absolutely fascinating to me, though, is Jenny's going to come in and do one of these podcasts in a few weeks with electrical. It is always funny to me to this day, running total. Jenny has failed more people in capstone than I have, way more.
Honestly, I believe that. I have a few friends who were electrical.
Yeah.
We did hear going. This is all flashing back.
Yeah. Riley's like, oh.
We did hear during that she would be tougher than Brad.
Exactly. She's way tougher.
Yeah.
She's way tougher than I am grading wise. She fails way more people, Now, we're different though, but we're very, very different. I have people do a defense. And the reason I do a defense is I watch Jenny how much time she'll spend hours on each one of these things. And she'll be working late in evenings. I know because she'll text me, "Don't so and so didn't do what I asked them to do," and she'll get really frustrated and she'll take it personally and all these things, and she usually puts out these really, really complicated, like rubrics where it's like you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to do this, and I'm like, how can anybody not just do what Jenny asks for the love of God?
Whereas Brad just he gives 4 paragraphs and calls it good.
Yeah, it's a little more than 4. It's a whole page now, right? But no, it's Jenny puts out these detailed things, and then people don't do it. But here's the thing with her rubric, she's locked in. If you don't do this part, and she's assigned this many points to it, well, she has to take that many points off. There's no, whereas mine, I'm like, well, you tubed this part, but this part maybe you went over and above on, and and I can be more like, okay, as a whole, what is this worth? Is this A work, B work, C work? Taken as a whole, not on an individual basis. So I think the rubric actually makes your life more difficult, not easier, but I don't know. It's just difference in the ways that we grade. So, teaching philosophies and that like.
It is funny. That just flashes back, and I do remember that during the whole process.
Yeah.
Like, knowing that.
Yeah, she's, oh my gosh, here a few semesters ago, I want to say she failed 40% of the electricals. I mean, it wasn't a big class, so but like if 8 of them, it was like she failed 3 out of 8, or almost, or maybe she failed 4 out of 8. I don't know what it was, but it was not good. It's not good for them. I didn't feel sorry for them. She laid out clearly what they had to do. They just didn't do it.
Well, and frankly, maybe this is. It doesn't matter if you're mechanical emphasis or not, or really, or electrical.
No, it doesn't.
There's not enough to. Maybe now there's a lot, but back then, there was only 3 of us that were mechanical emphasis, and then the other, however many groups there are.
No, I think there's more. There's more mechanical
now.
and electrical now. That's true, but still, you're right. Is that there are a lot of students doing this that aren't mechanical emphasis, and you don't have to be mechanical emphasis to be assigned this. And to be honest, over the last 20 years, the worst ones have been mechanical emphasis students. I mean, the really bad ones were all mechanical emphasis students. I mean, there's been some really bad ones over the years. Yeah.
To do electrical emphasis, I'd want to be, or to do the electrical design, I'd want to be electrical emphasis. But
Yeah, but here's the thing: all you need is Jenny's class.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
and that goes for if you're choosing to be the mechanical emphasis
Right.
in capstone.
right?
You're still prepared based on the classes that all emphases take.
yeah, because Jenny
Yeah.
does a really good job of walking through what the process is.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
She does. She does. And yet people screw it up all the time.
Yeah, I think the difference is how invested and interested you are in that.
I would agree that does matter.
Yeah.
That does matter. Yes, but there's also something else going on here. And I think what's going on is that there's a difference in students that want to finish their career strong and students that just want to finish.
Well, yeah, exactly.
You know, the ones looking to do just the minimum and they're just like so close to getting out of Iowa State and so close to graduating. And they're like, I just want to be done. I don't really care. You know, and I understand it. I don't agree with it, but I do understand it. You know, I mean, I understand that mindset. It's a long road. You know, I mean, look at Daniel. He almost has tenure here. He's been
Yeah.
he's
Be a
been going
doctor.
here for a while, right?
Thanks for thinking that up, Brad.
Yeah, not a problem. That's
Now-
what I'm here for.
now
Use the
everybody
mic. Come on now. What's that? Yeah.
Almost a doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he should be by now. I mean, all the years he's got here, but I appreciate him being here that long, right? Someone had to restart the mechanical MCA after COVID. I mean, that was a disaster.
Because outside looking in, it does look like there's a lot more mechanical emphasis students.
Mechanical emphasis, or at least mechanical interested.
Because even going to that industry night a couple weeks ago,
Yeah,
vastly different.
yeah. Well, I think, you know, I'm going to attribute that a lot to MCA's involvement.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's one thing for me to say, hey, there's opportunity, you know, but it's different when it's like, hey, check out these scholarships.
Yeah.
You know, check out these jobs. I mean, with Baker Group on a internship hiring tear, I mean, you know how great that is with a student that comes to me and says, I mean, literally today, I had a conversation with a girl that's a sophomore in mechanical engineering. Somehow, she's got a Baker Group internship.
Does she?
Yeah. And, but it's recent. It's a recent development. She interned at IMEG. You know, you know who I'm talking about?
Yep.
All right. I won't say because I don't have permission,
Yep.
you know, to use her name and all. But anyway, so she's talked to me today and she asked a funny, you guys will get a kick out of this. She's like, hey, if I switch to Connie, could I still get my PE license? And I'm like, yes. You know, I'm like, yeah, here, let me assure you, you can. I literally go over to my wall. I'm like, see this? This is my engineering license. Notice it says mechanical engineering, but yes, I did graduate, you know, from construction engineering. I'm like, here's my stamp. I still have it, you know, and I'm like, yes, you can. And she's like, well, I've been thinking about switching from ME to Connie, and I got this internship at Baker Group. I'm like, yes, you need to. You really need to. She's like, I don't want to take a robotics class. I'm like, I don't blame you.
That's the fifth person we've mentioned that he's working on her switch.
Yeah. well, you know, so we were literally talking about it today, but here, this is why a strong internship is I really appreciate Baker Group and their internship program, because you guys are taking in all kinds of them, knowing that you're not going to hire all of them, but that's okay. It gets them exposure to the mechanical area, and maybe they don't all work for you.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they intern and they're like, okay, I like this, but I want to see something else, or I want to move home to Minnesota, or, you know, whatever it is. That's the important part. And that's what I think has really helped grow the mechanical emphases at Iowa State is a good supporting national association, Iowa association, and Iowa contractors hiring, so that the student that says, yeah, I'm kind of thinking of mechanical, I'm like, oh yeah, go talk to the Bakers or the Harris or, you know, whoever. It's great to be able to put them in touch with people hiring, and so they can easily make this transition and be fairly confident there's jobs at the end of it.
I think it's good. You know, you have people like Shelby and I who are, we talked, 6, 7 years out.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
not necessarily, a little bit relatable. You can see kind of that path forward, that opportunity that we spoke
Oh
about.
yeah, because they can look at the two of you and they're like, wait a minute, that's literally the next step.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like I get through college, I get that first job. Okay, I'm successful at that first job. Now what? Well, that's where you're at. You're at that point. It's like, okay, I was successful and now I've got more responsibility and I've been promoted and I got promoted. Shelby's like, yeah, I was promoted in a year and a half, and that's something that someone can take and go, hey, I can do that. That does sound like a good path, and like you're saying, and that's actually great to be able to tell, when you're able to tell students, it's like, how long are you unemployed for? You're like, I just got to get to LinkedIn or my cell phone, probably just my cell phone, and then something would present itself. That is great information to have because we all know there are going to be downturns again. Although, to be honest, I figured one would happen by now. With the last major recession in that 2008 to 10 range, you're like, these are cyclical. There'll be another one in 5 or 10 years that didn't happen. And then it didn't happen again. And now we're 15 years after the last major recession. And, people are talking about a slowdown. Yeah, people have been talking about a slowdown for a long time.
Yeah.
But, one of the advantages, or at least what I saw this last slowdown, we saw developers, general contractors, a lot of those types just going under, laying people off and going under. In the mechanical world, it was more like, we just won't hire for a little bit. But I don't think hardly anyone laid off in the mechanical world. Most people kept the people that they had because it was really in mechanical, and I noticed this at convention. For the mechanical contractors, it was like a chance to catch their breath.
Yeah.
Like a chance to be like, okay, let's calm down from the pace that we're going at and really focus. What are we doing and how are we doing it? And, like you were saying here before this, I want to get back to that before we started taping. You were talking about how one of Baker Group's areas is prefabrication. You want to talk about that one a little bit? And here, I'm going to pull up a picture for what we...
Sure. Yeah, so, you talked about these slowdowns, right? Because those still happen, right? It's not enough to call it a recession, but the
right, yeah.
Market shifts, right? So we talked about COVID a little bit, how the medical stuff changed a little bit. You saw the office space go down, where people... different things happen there. Medical kind of increased with the things we already talked about. And then just with the technology changes, and I can't speak too much on it, but just the amount of data centers over the last 10, 15 years.
Shocking. Here, the picture I've got up there is some, this is what prefabrication looks like for mechanical. In other words, we're building skids with a bunch of pumps on it or even boilers, whole air handlers, chillers, whatever it is, putting it on a structural steel frame, if you will, and then building it in the shop, putting it on a truck and sending it out.
Because we're doing that in Wisconsin right now, Louisiana, North Dakota, for several different clients and in different parts of Iowa where we're not always the install contractor, especially ones out of state, but we're prefabbing these or manufacturing these and sending them out for another contractor to install.
Nice.
It's just a different market that we've focused on a little bit as things happen around the Des Moines market.
Yeah.
Life moves a little slower than some areas, right, in Iowa.
Yeah.
But this has specifically started in the Des Moines market with all the data centers here.
Right.
Energy is cheaper and the land is cheaper. But then as we grow, as we looked at the opportunity, said, oh, this isn't just an Iowa thing. This can happen all over.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and what that once again, what that does is, or has done, is that it's taken our mechanical contractors, and while general contractors were going out of business, like I said, a lot of mechanical contractors started doing a lot more service.
Yeah.
And this is an important component of any mechanical contractor that the general contractors don't have.
They talk about that a lot. Is sometimes they're jealous of us because we have an excuse to stay in the building.
Yes,
to do the preventive maintenance,
to do the improvements and the maintenance and all that stuff. Well, here's what's happened. Like, let's rewind the clock. Maybe let's go all the way back to like the 80s. You look at a school or something. What was the mechanical system? I got a boiler, and I got windows. It was like, hey, it's hot. Open a window. It's really hot. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's cold. I'll turn on the boiler. I'm still cold. Move closer to the radiator. I'm still cold. Put on a sweater then. We don't care. You know, there wasn't a lot of complexity in those buildings. Well, what's a modern school like now? You know, it's going to have chillers and boilers and a VAV system.
Yeah.
You know, might have pool systems and, you know, like one school, multiple air handlers.
And now when you talk about radiant heat like that, it's usually just supplement, right?
Yeah. You know, so you've got complicated systems. What happens is in the old boiler days, the person that emptied the garbage can probably turned on the boiler.
Yeah.
And that was probably it. They can't do that anymore. The person that empties the garbage can is in no way qualified. And I'm not disparaging the person emptying the garbage can. Okay? But what I am saying is that the mechanical systems have done nothing but get more and more and more complicated, and that's not changing. You know, look at the systems you're installing. Are those simpler or more complicated than they were even 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
Way complicated.
Way more complicated. You know, look at the stuff I'm teaching the service techs. You know, like, you know, we just had a conversation about primary, secondary pumping for the service technicians. You know, like they're going to end up understanding primary, secondary pumping better than most graduating engineers here. And that's not really all that big of a claim because they don't really teach that much in the ME department. But you know what I'm saying is that systems are more complex and they are getting worse.
Well, and you kind of mentioned it, but like you asked us, what's the contract value or percentage wise?
Yeah, what would you say? I mean, I always throw out in class like at least 40%.
So if you're talking MEP, I think it's at least 40%.
Of 40% of
Including
total.
including electrical. Yeah.
Yeah, including electrical. It's got to be at least 40%.
Yeah, for a medical facility.
For a medical
I
facility.
can't imagine what the data centers are.
Oh, yeah, they're way over.
Yeah,
they're way
but you
over
talk
40%.
more about, you know, the mechanical emphasis and really what that means. Yes, it's specialized and unique as far as graduating from here in industry. But to your other point, it's growing in the scope of work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look at where the energy code's going.
Yeah.
You know, and look where regulations on like the refrigerants and all these things. They are just going to make systems more complicated. There's no choice. You know, we cannot create enough power. We can't get efficient enough. You know, the way you increase efficiency in mechanical systems is always the same. It's more complexity. Never is going to get easier. So for someone graduating at Daniel's age, it's going to be even more opportunity for him.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, I know we're all biased in this room for this, but you know, I mean, that's things that I've observed during my career, and I definitely know how much more complicated things are today than they were before. I mean, just trying to explain the basics of all the different system choices to any group is tough. You know,
You can't.
well, you're right. I can't. I mean, hell, you know, in 352, we don't even get to things like VRF systems, and
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it's like, geez, I don't want to confuse these college kids too much, you know. But so the very first thing they do is they take my class, they leave, and they're like, get to their first job, and they're like, oh, I haven't heard about all this stuff, you know, Shelby. What are you talking about? I got to do a takeoff for a VR. I don't even know what VRF is.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
funny that you mentioned that because
Yeah.
I had one of my design classes on the ME side. We did a VRF system,
Yeah.
and I had not done one until about a project that started 3 months ago.
Oh, really?
Now
Yeah.
we're doing a VRF system. So,
Yeah.
So they are coming.
Well,
bit
I
more
think
common.
I think you know, at convention last year, I remember I was sitting in on a conference where they're talking about states outlawing natural gas for heat. You know, unfortunately, this isn't an Iowa problem, but it is a problem in like New York and Washington and Oregon and California, where contractors are like I was sitting next to one of the biggest contractors in the state of New York. You know, and of course, his name is Vinny. Great guy, right? And I'm like, listening to this, I'm like, Vinny, they outlawed natural gas in new buildings in New York? And he goes, yeah, they did. And I'm like, what are you going to do when you've got some high-rise building in downtown Buffalo, New York? How are you going to heat that building? He's like, haven't got it figured out yet. You know, he goes, I don't know if we're going to be able to get exemptions or what. I'm like, you're not doing VRF in Buffalo, New York, you know, in the middle of winter. And he's like, yeah, probably not. you know, and I'm literally like, is there enough electricity to just do electric resistance heat? And he's like, I don't know. You know, that's a big, you know, so I'm just saying is that a student that leaves here is not, most of them or a lot of them are not going to stay in Iowa forever, and they're going to see systems like that. And it's like, wow, it's even more complicated than what Perkins said in class, you know? So do you think that number is like 40%? Is that like
For medical?
medical?
Yeah, for MEP.
For mechanical, electrical, and plumbing,
Yeah.
40%. Now think about that, because those aren't like poorly finished buildings or cheap shells, you know, to say that those are 40%
Like
mechanical.
that one you had pulled up before, that was about 40% all for MEP.
Yeah, wow. That's, I mean, so is Baker Group do you guys typically like to do all mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, since you guys have a big electrical wing?
Yeah. I mean, definitely as much as possible. We like to try and get as many of our business units in on a project together.
All right, so Shelby, so let's say you're doing a project and, you know, as project manager, would you be managing the electrical, or would you have separate project managers, or do you have someone doing sheet metal, someone doing plumbing and piping? You know, how does that work?
Yeah, so we typically have one project manager for each business unit that's focusing on that scope of work, but then there's typically one business unit will oversee the whole project. Yeah.
Okay.
Just kind of be the main point of contact.
Okay.
and,
Someone kind of in charge of everyone?
Yeah.
Right. How's that go, managing the electricals?
Well, I love
Okay.
working with electrical, but
Yeah.
a lot of times, even when they're working on the same project, we will see that they will actually have a separate contract.
Okay.
I would say they're often heavily involved in the direct communication with the GC or the owner or whomever. But we'll also have internal meetings for additional collaboration, coordination.
Well, I mean, I would
side.
imagine it would make you all more efficient. You know, I mean, everything from deliveries to, although, okay, is it still this way? Like when I was interning for Waldinger, right? The two sheet metal versus plumbing, they were so picky about tools they wouldn't share. You know, like they would literally paint their stuff different colors, so the sheet metal guys would know if like one of the plumbers took one of their tools.
Well, I'd say that probably depends on how good of a relationship the
If it's
fitter
not
has
tools,
with
it's
the pipe
something.
fitter.
It's not tools,
Yeah.
it's something. All right,
Yeah.
that's fair. I get that. All right. So what is there? Where do you guys here? You know, we got a few minutes left. I don't know. Is there? Riley, we got how Shelby got into this mechanical thing. We never got back to you on this,
Yeah.
right?
Ultimately, just knew I wanted to do something in engineering and construction. Seemed the right path, just going up around construction. But truly, we've kind of already talked about it. Really, I recognized pretty early. You were a major part of this, but I think you helped me recognize it, and I recognized it as far as if I graduated with 100 people, and I don't know that that's accurate. You know,
100 people a year, maybe.
Yeah. Yes. So 4 of those were going as a mechanical emphasis, and one or two electrical, and so on. So I did recognize pretty early that, hey, if I want to make myself unique, and probably because I didn't think I was smart enough to like do what everyone else was doing, so I said, I need to find something to make myself a little unique, and that was it.
Oh yeah.
So that's and then obviously I had my first internship with Wolin, no longer around, and then I just loved it, right? Because during that internship and you were almost doing a lot more responsibility. You know, that says something about the company, but also the mechanical construction industry is.
No, I think that's true.
Yeah.
I think that is true. Most of our interns usually have similar experiences where they were like asked to do a lot more.
I
maybe.
wasn't in charge of RFIs and submittals all summer. You know.
Yeah.
What I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
I was on multiple projects, doing design, doing some detailing. You know, order. So I was touching a lot more. And then again, you'd hear people come back and they say, "Yeah, I ran the RFI log all summer on a major big project," and I was like,
yeah.
So that really intrigued me as far as just immediately the responsibility and different experiences I had.
Okay. All right. So what year? When did you switch to mechanical emphasis then, or did you just come in as a mechanical?
No, I didn't. It would have been after. It would have been my sophomore year. So
sophomore year.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
That's a common, it's that sophomore and junior kind of area is when a lot of people.
Well,
you
I
know,
did a
switch.
heavy highway internship.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, and
Oh, hideous.
so I was like, it's not this.
Uh.
So then I just kind of went down the list.
You just went down the list.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, heavy highway, that's the bottom.
Yeah.
All right, now anything else is better. I say that because Roy and I joke around so much. You know, hold on a second. Roy probably came here way after your, like definitely after you graduated. Did you know? Do you know?
No,
Okay.
I only know the name.
Okay, all right. Well, he's just one of our professors. He's kind of the head heavy highway guy. You know, so we just joke around a lot about teasing each other on our emphases. And
Admittingly, I wouldn't have known who the heavy highway person was before that.
it's probably Chuck.
Yeah,
probably
it
Chuck.
would be
yeah,
Chuck,
Yeah. So no. Anyway, it's just an ongoing joke that we have about whether heavy highway is a real engineering or not. You know, you push a pile of dirt around, you cover it with concrete.
Yeah.
How hard is this?
Well, then I did a co-op at Baker Group, and you were talking about the internship experiences earlier. And, if that would be a lasting note, it would be push the co-op because. It's crazy. It turns you think okay, it's internship is 3 months, co-op is gonna be 6 months. It really turns into 8 months by the time.
It does.
So
it does.
It's a 3-month internship or 8-month co-op, and just just a heightened responsibility and different experiences.
You know, that is a good point. I want to mention. A lot of students ask me, it's like, would you recommend I do a co-op? And I'm like, maybe. And here's why. The downside is it adds an extra semester, to your graduation plan. All right. But what I tell people is there is no better way. If you think you might really be interested in a company and you want to really try them out, an internship is great. And we always recommend them. You got to have internships. But a co-op, you really get to be what it's like to be a real member of a company. You know, when you're in a co-op, by the time you're done with your co-op, people think you actually work there.
Yeah, it really almost triples your time there. I mean,
Yeah, it does.
8 months.
It does. And it's no longer just the new guy that's going to be gone in a month. You know, now it's like someone that is going to be around that we could give some real meaty assignments to. And you really get a feel for what the company's like, and things like company culture and things that are really hard to measure.
Yeah,
in just an internship, that's really hard to get a good feel for. But becomes more obvious once you intern or once you co-op.
There's all sorts of factors if you extend a semester, but it just seemed worth it. Like the living expenses and being in Ames for an extra semester was really what it came down to. In the long run, really benefited me, and I think benefits a lot of co-op people.
I think it does. I think you're right, and I would definitely recommend. If you're serious about a company and you really want to get a good feel for is this a good home for you or not, I think co-ops are a good way to go. Right? But all right, well, we're almost getting out of time here, But there's one thing that we alluded to that we need to come back to, right? What was it you were asking about, Riley?
You're talking early on, right?
Yeah, talking early on.
I heard that Hilton used to get great concerts.
Hilton did used to get great concerts. That's a fact. Hilton used to get like I went, Dale Drent there, and I went to Metallica in the 90s. Okay, great concert. Oh my gosh, Metallica in the 90s was awesome. And then it came to Hilton Coliseum. They played in the round in the center, and the place was packed. Fog of smoke that people were, oh Lord, it was terrible. But and at the end of Metallica concert, they did this. The last song they would play, the stage blew apart. They had all sorts of pyrotechnics and stuff. And then they had one of their road crew at the top of Hilton fall on a bungee cord, set on fire. Right? Yeah, that was part of the show. It was awesome. It was awesome. So Dale and I, we go to the concert, and we're there with his brother and another friend or two of his. And then, at a concert like that, when it lets out, everybody stays to the last second. And then the entire Hilton Coliseum was packed, all the way to the upper, the last seat was sold out. And they had, all sorts of chairs on the floor, which turned into a mosh pit, which was awesome, but anyway, so the concert's done and we leave, and it's winter. And so we leave, and there's this huge mass push and crush of people getting out of there. And I get separated from Dale. I had rode with him to the concert in his old white GMC Jimmy, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. So we leave, and we get separated. I'm like, it's cool. I'll just go to his truck, and I get there first, and then, you know, he never locked the damn thing, right? There wasn't worth stealing. So I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna sit in here and I'm gonna wait. It's like, by the time that concert got over, it's like, I don't know, it was December, January. You know, it was like -5 out, you know, and I got a jacket on, but you don't want to wear something heavy into a Metallica concert. You'd leave smelling like a weed factory, you know? So I wasn't wearing anything too heavy. I was freezing. I was in this truck. I'm waiting, and he does not show up, Well, what happened was his brother's car was parked a lot closer to Hilton. So they all jump in his car and go to the bar.
Oh, no.
And I'm sitting here in this freezing little GMC Jimmy, and it's like, yeah, like -5. I got no gloves, no hat. It's -5, and everybody's left. I'm like one of the last few vehicles in Hilton Coliseum. I'm like, those dirty bastards have left me, you know. And I'm like, and this is like '96, right? So there's nobody has a cell phone,
Yeah.
Right.
you know. So I go to leave. My house is west of campus.
Wow.
So I walk from Hilton to, like, from Town Engineering, just go like down the hill and then up the hill. I'm like over there on Oakland Avenue, right? And but at the time there was payphones all along Lincoln Way. So I get to the first payphone and I call Dale's house. I'm like, hey, where you at? Come get me. I'm on Lincoln Way, you know. And I walk to the next payphone and I call him again and I leave a message. I'm like, hey, dirtbag. So let's just say that each one of these messages got more and more and more belligerent as,
Oh my God.
as I walk all the way home, you know. And I'm like freezing. You know, and those guys are at Welch Avenue Station drinking or something. They didn't even tell me where they were going, you know. And I think at some point Dale's like, "Hey, where's Brad?" You know, and they're like, "Oh, I thought he was with you. Oh, I thought he was with you." You know, and finally, like, my last message, you know, asked Dale about the message train left on his machine at the Metallica concert. By the last one, it was pretty angry. It was pretty angry. It's like, "Hey, jackass, I made it all the way home. No thanks to you." You know, and I hang up.
Oh my gosh.
It was still a great concert, though. Totally worth going to.
I don't know why it just seems like a Dale thing, doesn't it? Just for him to kind of, oh, where's Brad?
Yeah, where's Brad? He's in your car. Oh, yeah, I should have drove my car.
Can't wait for him to watch this.
Oh,
episode.
yeah. Say, hey, Dale, you got to watch it all the way to the end. Just tell him that. He's got to watch it all the way.
Yeah.
He's
to
going
the
to
end.
come on for a third podcast to
Yeah,
defend himself
to
now.
defend himself. He's like, it's not my fault. I told you. No, he didn't. He's just like gone, crushing people, you know, pushing and shoving to get out of there. A bunch of unruly Metallica fans back in the 90s, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a good time. They used to have really good concerts at Hilton.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened, but we don't have them like that anymore.
Maybe it was because of that.
Maybe it was because of the on fire roadie falling from
Yeah,
the ceiling, and Hilton's like, that is not covered by our insurance.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been to a few Metallica concerts, and they don't have that anymore.
They don't have that anymore.
No.
Well, those guys are like in their 70s now, right?
Yeah.
You know, of course they don't throw roadies from the ceilings and set them on fire. They probably have insurance. Actually, all seriousness, you know what happened that changed a lot of that? Right? The Warwick,
Wait.
Rhode Island fire.
Station fire.
The station fire. The station nightclub
Oh.
fire.
Was that
Like-
White Snake? That?
Yeah, that was the Whitesnake concert where
Yeah.
right, like I was in college right there when it happened, and like overnight all of a sudden fire marshals were enforcing the fire code, and you're like, what the heck, there's nobody in here, you know, and they're like, nope, we're at capacity. It's like,
Oh.
what happened? What was that? It was the station nightclub fire, right? I'm sure things like pyrotechnics at concerts, you know, the whole thing changed. So yeah, we're not setting anybody on fire and dropping them out of the ceiling at Hilton.
Good old days.
Yeah, the good old days. It's too bad. You know, the whole life and death thing is kind of bad. But anyway. All right. Well, did you guys have any closing comments or anything, you know? Any excuse for why you dropped this? See, I can catch it right there. We go. Right.
Give
there.
the right angle to it.
No, for that camera, this is the right angle. There, yeah. See, the broken chip part shows up in the light there. I like that.
It just looks like it had, looked like we deserved it now. It's been through a lot.
It's been through a lot. That's right. Right here, you can hold it. No, wait.
Yeah.
No, you don't get to hold it again.
You're gonna go back and look at your.
I am. I'm going to go back and see where you chipped my Instructor Educator of the Year trophy. I got to look closely.
Yeah.
I should have looked at that. All right. Well, thank you so much for both of you coming in. It's been great having you on here. Sure appreciate it. Make sure you tell Dale that, or ask him about the voicemail messages when he got back. He'll remember that. He'll remember that. They were colorful. All right.
Will do.
All right. Well, this is going to wrap it up for another episode of the Office Hours Podcast with Professor Brad Perkins. Thank you to my guests for taking the time to spend a couple hours with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Brad.
you.